first city council meeting of, actually, the second city council meeting of the new year. So I'm going to ask everybody to please rise for an invocation and pledge of allegiance. Let us bow our heads. O Heavenly Father, as we begin our work this new year, please hold this new council in your hands. As we carry forward the city's business, we thank you for giving us such a wonderful place to live, raise our families, and enjoy all that you have provided us. We thank you for our health and ask that you remember those not so fortunate. We thank you for our food and ask you to remember those hungry. We thank you for our freedom, and particularly we thank you for our safety personnel who have kept us out of harm's way during this present situation of ice. For it is in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Marie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cannon.
Here.
Councilmember Vitelli.
Here.
Councilmember Bergworth. Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Loftus.
Yo.
Councilmember, I'm sorry, I didn't make my list tonight. Councilmember Ward.
Here. Present.
Mayor, City Administrator, and City Attorney.
Here.
Friends.
I'm here.
That's good.
Okay. All right, we got that hard part of the agenda cleared up. First of all, thanks for everybody for coming out. I know the weather is turning miserable. We'll try and move as expeditiously as we can. On your agenda, you see, next item was going to be an introduction of Bill Taylor from the Municipal Association. He has either been told or he wisely made his own decision not to come. He will be coming, we'll invite him back probably for next month.
The 18th.
He's a
Special.
representative from the Municipal Association that worries about, well, us and a whole bunch of other municipalities if you haven't met him.
The 18th?
That's the night of the special meeting at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, now on item 3, consideration of Mayor Pro Tem. This is the time when we take nominations for the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have any nominations? Jimmy?
I'm nominating Jimmy Carroll.
Jimmy Carroll's been nominated. A second?
Second.
And a second.
I'd like to
Michael?
nominate Marty Vitelli.
Marty Vitelli. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Okay, we have 2 nominations. Any other nominations? All right, let's have a vote. All in favor of Jimmy Carroll, please raise your hand. 3. Okay. Doesn't pass. All in favor of Marty Vitelli, please raise your hand. 5 to 3. Okay, Marty, you're the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. I'm honored.
All right, moving on. Reading of journal of previous meetings. You have in your hands public hearing of November 19th. You now, as you arrived, you received a revised meeting minutes from November 19th. You have the special meeting of December 3rd, special meeting of January 7th, and a special meeting of January 21st. Can I have a motion to approve, amend?
So
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. Any discussion, additions, deletions? No? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We're out to citizens' comments. Before we ask the Water and Sewer Commission to come forward, I will tell you that Stephen Trainum, who's on the hit list here, has also wisely chosen not to come from Columbia, and we have a letter from him we will put in the minutes of the meeting. Basically, it says, as far as they're concerned, nothing's changed from the report they gave us in November. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
And we'll move on from there. Stephen can be with us periodically if we so need. All right, let's turn the floor over to the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission. As everyone here knows, and I'm assuming the public knows, they have advertised for a rate increase, and we thought it wise if they came forward and explain what's going on, the whys and wherefores, if you could. And you're not going to go through every page, are you?
Every one of them. I got to be here. No, these are the handouts you all have received earlier, but these have some added pretty colors to them, so if you wouldn't mind take some of these and pass them down. And I have a few extra copies. I learned that the hard way last time. And if anybody needs some extra copies, and there's on up here, I will do that and take some for you, so just let me know.
Just for the record and for the viewing audience, you have a number of your council members present with you tonight.
The commission members, I thought.
Commission, I say council.
Yes.
And they're your backup in the event?
Well, no, I'm just going to tell you, don't shoot the messenger. There are plenty of targets right there.
Well, Jay Lee's here, Nick Stroud, and Dana Love,
Yes, sir.
if people don't know. So, okay, tell us what's going on.
Well, the reason we're here is because Forest Trails is old. If Forest Trails was measured in age, Methuselah would make it look like it was a child. Forest Trails was installed in 1970s, and since that time, it has well exceeded its useful life. While we still continue to meet our existing discharge requirements, we needed to get a new treatment plant. So back in 2004, when we finally got another rate study going, we decided at that time that we would look at alternatives to a new waste treatment plant, whether it's going to be a new treatment plant, whether we take it to Mount Pleasant or whatever. Mount Pleasant was going to cost us well over $20 million just to get it across the intercoastal waterway. So the commission decided at that time they would probably move forward with building a replacement for the Forest Trails treatment plant. We had a rate study done was completed in 2007, and the 2007 projected a rate increase in fiscal year 2014 and again in fiscal year 2015, 5% and 14% respectively. But they didn't take into account the housing debacle that occurred in 2008. In 2008, our revenues just went straight down. So we had to figure out another way to come up with the financing for that. So we ended up getting another rate study done, and that rate study also showed that we needed to have our rates increased, and which is why we're here tonight.
So when was that? You had a rate study done in 2008 or right after?
2007. We had one done in 2007.
But then after
We had one done, it was in 2013.
13.
Yes. It was started in 2012.
Okay.
Because we noticed that our revenue streams were just continuing to decline. In that handout you've got, you don't have to go through it right now, but there are graphs that show the historical trends for our revenues.
Well, you don't mind if we interrupt? Or
Please.
You're talking just the sewer side of your business?
Yes.
Not the
Absolutely.
water side?
The only increase we're looking for right now is for the sewer.
But when you say about your revenue went down, it was the revenue in the sewer side went down?
And water also.
And the water?
Yes, sir. For some reason, it picked back up in 2010, but since 2010, it's gone down even further. We're about almost 6% below where we were in 2007.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
About 2 years ago, when I first got on the council, y'all did a presentation to us, and we were talking about the new treatment plant down on Woodley Boulevard, and the monies it was going to cost, and y'all were needing to raise 10% down payments for the plant. And so you raised it then for that down payment?
We were going to fund 10% of it out of our revenue, out of our existing revenues, yes.
And then the proposed rate increase 2 years ago was going to be about 5%.
Yes, sir. And that was what was expressed in the 2007 rate study, was the 5%. But since that time, the rate study we did in 2007 did not anticipate the revenue decreasing like it has. It projected about a 2.5% to 3% steady growth in revenue from 2007 onward. And that we had already given them the cost for the treatment plant at that time. And his rate study was based on what we thought it was going to cost us at that time. Now, the cost of the treatment plant had gone up since then, too. So, yes, it was a 5%, but that no longer holds valid because we just don't have the revenues to cover it.
Go ahead.
Well, timing issues prevented us from having the rate increase that we wanted to in the beginning of our fiscal year in 2014. We had originally planned, then we had moved it to December, but again, timing issues, we couldn't do it then, so we decided we were going to do it in January. Well, again, we couldn't meet until the end of January, so the rate increase will be reflected in the February bill. You all have copies of our basic facility charge rate increases and the volumetric charge rate increases. The basic facility charge will go up $2 a month for.
I just computed it to be about 9%, 9 and a fraction percent.
We're looking at 10%, yes, sir.
Sorry, 10%.
Right, 10%, yes, sir. So there will not be an increase like we said in water, and impact fees, everything else stays the same. No other charges are going up.
Well, I'm assuming you've done some work to figure out why your volume is going down. I mean,
well, we're trying to, but we can't put our finger on it right now. I know commercial has really dropped off. We've lost several commercial businesses that were high volume users. The laundromat was one of them, and the Chinese restaurant was another one. So we continue to lose, for some reason, we continue to lose the commercial businesses. But we continue to try to improve our revenue stream, and one of the ways we do that is we've gone to have our lost meter, stuck meter, broken meter, a replacement program. So we're able to continue to capture some of that lost revenue by having this program. It has helped the residential side, but it has not helped the commercial side. So I'm not sure what the answer is. We continue to look.
well, how much of your volume is commercial versus
Commercial's
residential?
about 15%.
In the sewer side?
Yes, about 15%.
15%?
About, approximately, yes, sir. And it varies depending on the year.
Okay.
Well, some years are busier than others. If you have a hurricane season, like we did in like 2005 or something, when we had 4 or 5 of them come through here, commercial business just dropped off. It was non-existent.
Okay. Do you want us to ask questions, or
Please, please.
We have 2 new members of council, but I'm not sure how much of the background they've had. We, of course, signed off on the bond really starting almost 2 years ago now, when we first heard from the commission as far as what their needs were going to be. I guess I'm still a little surprised, and back to the presentation that I think Jimmy referenced, you used this chart with us? Your consultant did.
Yes, yeah, our consultant did that.
Which basically says you don't need a new increase because you're paying off debts consistently coming down, and then you're going to be adding the new debt on, and then it'll be level all the way out through 2030.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way now. That was the best information we had at that time. And those were projections.
How much revenue is this 9% going to get you? I don't know in dollar terms. $100,000 increase?
I don't have the
overall?
exact figure in front of me, but it will put us about halfway where we need to be.
Okay, well, then that leads to the next question. You're only halfway there?
Yes, sir.
When are you going to drop the other shoe?
2015.
And that
But
shoe
we don't
weighs
know.
how much?
Well, we don't know that right now. I mean, I can give you a number, but if I give you a number, you're going to hold me to it, like you did with that piece of paper. Because it depends on our revenue. If our revenues increase like they're supposed to, then the increase might not be as much. But if they don't increase like we're hoping they will, then the increase will probably be even more. So, I mean, it's a toss-up right now. We're looking at 10% again in 2015
10% and 15, so 20% overall through the period.
for these next 2 years.
Yeah, but that's enough to satisfy the capital requirements for the new treatment facility.
Yes, sir.
This
So
is just,
far.
these are just capital requirements, they're not operating expenses. You
No,
don't,
the operating expenses will take.
Should be
no,
the same.
excuse me. The commodity and our rates are based on commodity and demand.
okay.
The volumetric rate is demand rate. That's what the more you use, the more you
Right.
pay. And the commodity is the hard numbers that it costs to do something.
Right.
So that the revenues that we generate from our basic facility charge will pay for those operating costs for the treatment plant.
Well, just to give you a flavor for questions that are being asked, somebody asked if they can get off the sewer and go back to septic.
If they want to.
Well, they can't.
I mean,
We
we don't.
can't, our ordinances don't provide for that feature. If they have access to, if the sewer runs by their property, they have to connect to the sewer,
They do?
don't they?
No, it runs by my property, I'm not connected.
New additions, maybe that's it.
I don't think so.
I'll
Okay.
talk to Doug.
New construction.
New construction.
If gravity line is available, you have to.
Okay, that's what I remember.
Okay.
I got another
Please.
question. In that membrane plant that you're all building down
The
there,
MBR, yes, sir.
2 years ago when we did the bond, y'all, and the city had to sign off on that bond, did we sign a contract with the builder? And you said, but since then, the costs have gone up?
No, we didn't sign a contract with the builder until we started construction this past year. But when we originally did the 2007 rate study, the cost for the treatment plant at that time was less than it is now when the engineer updated his figures. When we started this project in 2004, I never thought we'd even get this far. I mean, I've been pushing for this new treatment plant for years, and it really surprised me that we got this far. So I never really knew when we were going to get where we needed to be. And the engineer didn't either. So his costs kept changing based on inflation. That's the best answer I can give you right now.
No, listen, the old tank that you had down there was a used tank when we got it, and I'm surprised it even lasted as long as it did.
I wake up at night with nightmares thinking that it broke. I don't have enough vacation time to run from that one.
Michael?
How much cost overrun from the original projection will the new treatment plant be?
There are no cost overruns right now. The contractor is where he said he was going to be, right on the money.
But how much difference is than what we talked about 2 years ago?
I don't have those numbers. I can get those numbers for you later. I don't have those right now.
It was 6.1 million then, is that right?
It could have been. I don't remember.
Somebody's going to ask, how do our rates compare with those of citizens on Sullivan's Island and those on Mount Pleasant, our nearest neighbors?
Well,
Or the new rates. The new
rates, how do the new rates?
proposed
they're
rate.
comparable. They're higher than some, but lower than others. Mount Pleasant's continues to go up. Sullivan's Islands are going to continue to go up because they've got some major work they have to do.
Are you telling us ours is going to continue to go up
Well,
too?
yes, sir, that's true, and that's the cost of doing business. I mean, running a wastewater sewer system is not it's not a cheap business. I mean, it's an expensive.
But can we
business.
state that you're in the league with these
Yes,
other
yes,
treatment facilities?
yes.
I mean, I don't care if it's
Yes.
plus or minus a penny or two or whatever.
But something else you need to take into consideration too is we have the highest ratio of accounts to employees than any other utility in this area. In other words, for every employee we have 383 accounts. And that includes me. And we know management doesn't do anything. So. The next closest is Mount Pleasant, and they have 301. And then it goes down from there. Sullivan's Island has 200. So we do more with less.
Well, just speaking personally, I appreciate the staff that you've got, I'll say, and your staff. You guys, I'm not sure about yet, but, they're out there every day, whether it's
sir.
digging a hole, replacing a meter, checking on the pumps, doing whatever they have to do,
Turn off frozen meters.
every day of the year. So, and there aren't that many of them, so give you credit for running a great stable. I shouldn't use that analogy, but...
We tried to. We tried to.
I guess part of my concern is the timing. Right now, after we're going into spring, everybody in the rental industry has already set their rates for the coming year, and they didn't anticipate, I'm certain, a rate increase coming at them from their sewer side.
Again, I had wanted to get this out earlier, but because of timing issues, I just couldn't get it done any faster.
I expect to hear, and I expect you'll hear as well, about why now, why couldn't it have been done earlier when they could have factored it into their pricing models, but, we'll see.
We tried to get it done, but we just couldn't do it.
And you don't anticipate an increase on the water side?
No, sir.
During this rate study
No, sir.
activity?
No, sir.
So between now, you'll have another one on the waste side, but not in the water between now?
We've already done the next study
Okay.
for the wastewater side. And that carries us out through 2018, 2019?
Is the rate increase uniform through all classes?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
nobody's,
No, it is non-discriminatory.
okay. How many other questions do we have for Linda?
Well, I was just going to say, for your public hearing on the 30th, I do think it would be useful to have some visuals.
This is the public hearing.
This is it.
This is the 30th.
Oh, yeah, I'm still looking at the old date. Sorry. Well,
I was trying to keep it as,
and excuse me for that, but I still think that you guys maybe should have available, if we generate some questions from the public for this meeting, some comparison of our rates to other surrounding communities. And I think I'd spread that out, not just Sullivan's Island and Mount Pleasant, but maybe City of Charleston, North Charleston Sewer District, some of the others, for a basis for comparison.
that's not really it's really not a fair comparison, because if you look at our debt service and depreciation costs, it's the biggest majority of our operating budget. Sullivan's Island doesn't have the same. Mount Pleasant doesn't have the same. Charleston surely doesn't have the same thing, because they've got so many customers that can be spread over without any question at all. So, when the commission was first formed, we assumed a loan with 9% interest, non-callable. We just finished paying that off. So, the debt service and depreciation is what kills us. It's not our actual operating cost.
That's what this chart showed. You're paying off all the high cost debt. You've incurred level debt in the future at less than 2% or something. Maybe it was even 1% your debt is. So your interest burden is...
Understand who the consultant was. He's a politician.
Ooh, that hurt.
Is that a slap? Man, barely even hurt. Okay.
And just one other thing, the notion of the total, the revenues going down on the sewer side, somehow or another I can't get that to gel in my head. I mean, I get that you've lost customers.
I couldn't either, because when you told me that you had one of the best seasons you'd had in a long time, I went back and started looking at our numbers, and I thought, something's not right here. But we checked the calibration on all of our meters, and all of our numbers, they balance out where they're supposed to. So I don't know where it is.
And your sewer charges are based on your water charges. Your
Yes, water
system is
your water-
automatically
Your water consumption,
right. So when it
determines what
downloads into it, it's making that.
yes, that automatically, your sewer bill is based on your water usage.
Unless you've added more irrigation meters and people are using water, but
Well,
just
see,
for
our water
irrigation
consumption is
purposes.
down also.
Oh, really? This is, we're dealing with here in this capital project with just one of you, 2 treatment facilities. Do you have plans to replace the other one in the near term? Or?
Not in the near term, no, sir.
So it's operating and will continue to operate?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On that same
Jimmy.
question you just asked, and I think 2 years ago, I think Ryan asked the question, could we increase this new plant to take in the Wild Dunes?
Yes. Yes, the plant is modular in design.
Right.
So that we can add modules as necessary and take load off Wild Dunes and actually put it into the Forest Trails area.
And probably a good savings because we've already got the infrastructure there now?
Yes, they're going ahead and putting the foundation in for the future modules now.
But that was, again, back to the chart you don't want to see. That was forecast for somewhere out 2017 or 20 or somewhere in the future as far as your capital needs
Yes, sir.
for treatment facilities.
But now those needs change on a,
Yeah, apparently.
it's a 20-year CIP that changes every 6 months.
Are we unique, by the way, in having our volume go down? I don't know other.
I don't know, I haven't checked with other utilities.
I mean, you know how many properties are on the island?
Yes, sir.
You know how many accounts
Yes, sir.
there are?
Yes, sir. About half the accounts are sewer. So we have about 4,700 customers, 4,700 accounts for water. So about approximately half of those are for sewer.
Well, you know, I'll ask the question because I want to, and I know the answer, but I want to make sure it's on the record. You don't have a leak in the system where you're living.
Well, there are leaks in the system. There's anybody.
No, but you measure it at the meters.
Any
so.
any utility that tells you that their water system doesn't leak is lying. But our water loss numbers are around 10%, which is well below the national average. So, yes, our water system leaks. Our sewer system does not.
That's what I want to hear. All right, I'm out of questions. Does anyone else on council wish to entertain anything? I just encourage you, I don't want to talk about rate increases in the future, but you know, the sooner you have an inkling, the better it is to communicate it, get it out, let people have an understanding so they can build it into their, whether it be a commercial client or a residential client that's renting their property, or even just a property owner like us. That
If I could have done it sooner, I would have done it a lot sooner. But my hands were tied. I just could not do it any faster. But now you have to understand the trade-off for this, though, is the new facility is going to be, I mean, we've designed it as a good neighbor facility. I mean, not only in looks, but in smell or lack thereof. So this is going to be a real.
you make a lot of people happy.
Yes.
You mentioned no
They
smell.
might forgive us for that.
Can I reiterate one question you said and Linda followed up on? It'd be great if we had the numbers of the surrounding communities,
The rates.
the rates, just so, because we're going to be asked. It's not going to come to y'all, it's going to come to us to ask for the questions.
Well, now, when you get these numbers, you have to understand.
Put an asterisk. Put an asterisk, and you know.
that not everybody uses the same. Charleston does theirs in 100 cubic feet. Mount Pleasant's basic facility charge is based on 6,000 gallons. Ours is based on 9,000 gallons. So there's a lot of variables. So
It'd help us in telling our constituents
Sure.
and our neighbors.
I'll make sure you have that.
Well, I mean, just take a typical home and say, what is the typical home on this island pay? Just
Okay.
total dollars, and you know, we can size a typical home for you if you want.
Well, the average home here uses 6,000 gallons a month.
Well, price everything on a 6,000 gallon a month home and see what Mount Pleasant, ask them what they would, I mean, we can cold call them and find
We'll make sure you get
find out what
We'll make
they
sure
would
you get-
charge for 6,000 a month, the residential property. That would probably be useful. Patrick?
Having just recently gotten acquainted with this, I have a question. You're saying what the need is. It's not something we vote on. They just
No, it's not.
no. So they
They voted on it.
so it's just a matter that you are informing.
Correct.
Okay.
And so customers will see that, I'm sorry, Sandy.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
the one thing that kind of disturbs me as a new council member is when you say, I don't know. I don't know why it's happening. I just encourage you to continue to try to find out.
I have been, believe me, I've been working diligently on this for quite a while now.
Well, if we can help you in
Yes.
whatever statistics we carry as a city is for whatever, I mean, we got a building executive here, city administrator, whatever information we've got that might shed light on this, I don't know. We don't count the number of toilets that are going in, so,
We might come up with that.
we probably could. Do we?
No, but the census does.
All right. Well, I don't believe the census, but
Last important point for the public is that the public will see this on their bill, on their February 28th
On
bills.
the last, the February bill, which will come out at the end of February.
So,
And so the average customer, 6,000 gallons a month, will see 14 cents a day increase.
And there is going to be some notification to the citizens prior to that.
well,
No, they have.
it's gone out in the paper, although,
And it's on our website.
and we're doing it tonight, and I don't know what else you can do to communicate.
Well,
I don't know how many people read the paper.
I have asked-
Honestly, most people are going to see it when they see the
I have
bill.
asked our customer service people to put a notice on the bill that goes out in January.
January, that's good.
So they'll have that notice on that bill.
So you're estimating it's going to be roughly about a $50 a year increase? Is that,
About $4.17 a month, yes.
okay, so.
Have y'all seen the plant recently?
I
I mean, it's amazing. All that grill and steel work and stuff. It was like a bank vault.
Yeah, Thomas and Hudson doesn't skimp on the steel.
Yeah.
They let you in, did they?
I got it from the
Let you
outside.
climb. All right, thank you, George. Thank you, guys. Okay, let's move on to, we're going to try and do this as quickly as we can because I'm not sure what the weather's doing out there, but last I knew it was
Starting to freeze again.
freezing rain again. Unfortunate. But before we, we're in citizens' comments. Any other citizen comment? Anybody else want to address council? You're plenty.
Yes. Emily, can you just come tell me? I have no other way to
Saying
think.
the Ravenel Bridge is closed.
Okay. Thank you.
Again.
Salt.
But on that note, I want to publicly thank all of our city staff, see you guys, who have worked so diligently in the last few days to keep us safe. The utilities, water didn't have much threat, but the power company was, when we did have disruptions, they were out here promptly. The county was very responsive, and so was the DOT. We were late in getting attention to the connector, but that was intentional. The intention was, that's such a long bridge and very difficult to keep dry, frankly. They wanted to make sure that they could had material for the other bridges. So Breach Inlet and Ben Sawyer have been open since early yesterday, and that would have been the route if anybody needed to get off the island. And we were opened up at, 5 o'clock last night, something like that, with the connector? And I think it was 5:03 to be precise. What? Yesterday.
Yes.
The Ravenel, of course, has just been opened at 3:30 today, and it's closed at 6:30. So they have their problems as well. And hopefully, we don't have to deal with it anymore. But Linda, the entire staff turned out, spent the night on the island in many cases where they live further away, spent double shifts if necessary. They did a yeoman's job, and obviously all of Charleston, when you compare us with what happened in Atlanta, should take some credit for having a plan, executing the plan, and keeping the citizens safe and secure. And hopefully we can continue to do that. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. No other comments? Standing committees. We'll go into the Ways and Means. I was elected chair. Jimmy Ward was elected vice chair. We heard from our treasurer. Property tax collections are running ahead of prior year, but that's more from the, not from people paying quicker, and it's just getting to us quicker through the system. Local option sales tax is above prior years. And so our revenue is well ahead of prior years, but that's more of a timing thing. We don't expect that to continue as it had been. On the expense side, we're 50% through the year, and our expenses are running 43% of budget, which is at the same point where we were prior years. So from an expenditure standpoint, we're in good shape, and we're hoping that the property tax, which is still the biggest unknown in our revenue stream, comes rolling through as anticipated. Tourism accounts and municipal accommodations tax is 9% year-to-date, through 6 months is 9% ahead of the prior year, and the other references are hospitality tax, and that's running at 8% ahead of prior year, so those are all good points of order. I expect we'll have state accommodations tax for the quarter ending in December available to report next month. Project schedules, not much to report, not much activity. We had a discussion of property tax assessment collection relative to Watercraft. It has come to our attention, particularly the city administrator, that if you use a post office box, the tax revenue was being attributed to the city of Charleston, not to ourselves. If your boat was in the marina here and you use a P.O. box, for some reason, all the revenue was showing up as paid to Charleston. Not that your revenue was a lot. It was enough to trigger some concerns, and so that is
2 years.
For 2 years.
2 years.
So that's since the new system went in, I believe. So that is still under investigation, and we're looking at any contacts, anybody who has, anybody who has a boat, look at your tax receipt to make sure that it says Isle of Palms on there, not the city of Charleston as far as part of the distribution. So we know it's a case for P.O. boxes, but it may affect others too. So if you'd be so kind, that would be useful to all of us. So let me move on to my other items. Under old business, we had a request from the Real Property Committee for an increase of up to $2,500 for integration of a new marina fuel dispenser for the point-of-sale system requiring a printer. So I'll make a motion to approve up to $2,500 for that expenditure.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. I got two different competing sets of documents here, so I'll try and move through them in reverse order as we've got. We had award of a contract to Lawman's Police Safety Supply for a budgeted purchase of 17 X26P tasers with accessories in the amount of $15,950.28. This is in line with our budget and bids. This is not a sole source.
It is a sole source. It's the only
Only one.
that carries that product here.
Okay. So I'll make that as a motion. Second. Motion seconded. Any discussion? Jimmy?
Has this ever come before council, the previous councils, or committees?
Committees, yes. Tasers have been discussed. I don't know that they've ever been brought forward as an item to purchase, but whether or not to consider tasers has come up a couple of times over the course of time related. I think mostly the discussion was at Public Safety Committee, is my recollection, and I think at one point we actually had the vendor came in and spoke before a committee. So it has been talked about before. It has not been something that the chief supported in moving forward with up until recent years. And Chief's here, he can certainly speak to it, but we have had some injuries involving officers in encountering offenders and trying to arrest them, and it's thought that the tasers have proven over time with other local governments that reduces the incident of officer injury.
Well, getting specific, it has come before committee.
Yes, sir.
Did it came out of committee?
It came up at budget time also.
But did it come out of committee with approval?
Yes.
Well,
Public safety?
yes, these have, but in prior years, it was never
Yeah,
taken.
I'm talking specifically about prior years.
Prior years, yeah, he's talking about prior years. I don't think it ever was it ever made as a request in prior years? I don't recall it being made as a request in prior years. It was just discussed from the standpoint of whether or not we wanted to move in that direction in prior years. But this year, it actually has went through the budget and went through public safety and
It was never requested, but it was discussed.
right. Because tasers sort of came out as a new option for law enforcement. I want to say maybe goes back as far as maybe 2002 or so. And so when they came out as a new tool for law enforcement, the vendor actually came forward and made a presentation to educate the Public Safety Committee. It was talked about at that time. Chief Buchanan was not in favor of it at that time. He felt like it wasn't proven enough and not had enough time for other entities to utilize it and figure out the pros and cons. And so for that reason, no request was brought forward.
May I ask the chief's opinion now? Would you mind
Sure.
addressing that?
Yes, sir. I just want to make one correction to what Linda said. It was not a vendor that came forward. It was actually our insurance carrier.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Thank you.
From the Municipal Association, actually recommended several years ago that we consider going to the tasers because of the decrease in the number of injuries that they've experienced in the pool with officers and injuries.
What's your feeling
My
today?
opinion, that's the reason why I have it in the budget. I think it's time to go to these tasers. We are experiencing greater resistance from people in the arrests that we make, and we've had some situations where some officers have reported claims of injuries. We've had situations of near misses with officers, and we've had situations with officers who are having to put their hands more frequently on the people to make the arrest other than putting handcuffs on them.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for the chief?
Just out of curiosity, with the gold standard that we just went through to Scalia, is that something that they would recommend also across?
I don't know if they would recommend it, but they would certainly not be against it. This is a tool that's commonly in place in law enforcement now. What they would recommend is make sure that our policies are sound, so as we move forward with this, we would also make sure that our policies would be in compliance with national standards, nationally accepted standards as well.
And the insurance would rather us have tasers than...
Oh, the insurance is highly in favor of it. And in fact, they're the ones who came in and did a presentation for City Council, I mean, not for City Council, for the Public Safety Committee a couple of years ago, throwing their support behind it, saying that that their studies show that the officers in departments throughout the state that are in the insurance pool have experienced less injury factors as a result of going to the tasers. And not only the less injury factors, but the injuries are less severe when injuries do occur than they were experiencing before the taser implementation.
Okay, Michael?
Chief, as far as process and procedure, if we move forward and the department gets the tasers, will you follow the same process as far as investigating the discharge of a taser as you would, say, another weapon?
Absolutely. It falls under our use of force, and any use of force incident is automatically reviewed from the point of the officer that has to use it to reaching to my level to approve that the officer followed the proper procedures and that they are within the guidelines as promulgated by the department. And these policies, like I said, we do get them reviewed in the legal fashion, so we would make sure that even this policy, as it is done, would also have fall on that same scrutiny.
Thank you. Very good. All right, no other questions? We have a motion and a second. No other discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, I'll move on to an award of a contract for $2,500 for sponsorship of the Dunlop Junior Tennis Championship. Award of the contract to Second. Oh, yeah, I skipped one. Okay.
You're really getting confused here.
Well, all right, let me back up. Award of a contract to Bird's Tailor-Made Fence in the amount of $34,400 for the Clarkson Field fencing at the rec center. I'll make that as a motion. Second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. This has been bid. This is the low qualified bidder, and this
Under budget.
and well under budget. And this will replace the fencing this spring, right? Be done by spring. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's go on to item 1. Recommendation from the ATAX Committee. Award of a sponsorship to Spoleto in the amount of $7,500. This was not approved at Ways and Means. We chose to bring it forward here. First of all, everybody should have received the minutes, which was requested, hopefully through the email, but also through this package. Franny Russell was expecting to be here tonight, but the weather has kept her on station, so she's working tonight, so she isn't going to be able here to answer any questions we might have. So I'll make a motion to award a sponsorship of Spoleto in the amount of $7,500 to see if there's any discussion. Is there a second? Motion and second. Any discussion on this award? This is sponsorship versus, well, I guess we all know, versus an ad that we took out last year, which was in the tune, cost us about $3,600 in total. So, any other discussion? Please.
Mayor, just one thing. I've asked a number of times for Spoleto, as many years I've been on council, and every time you come forward for documentation that supports the funding of it, and what we're giving, what they say it brings heads and beds, or puts heads and beds out here, but they don't have any information to support that as well. They're assuming, but it's also during a time in which the island is fairly well packed as well. But they have yet to show us anything as well either. I don't know. I mean, that's really not. How's that stopping anybody else who's having an event in Charleston to say that, hey, I'm having something going on downtown, it's going to put heads and beds on your island, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And I like the idea of the ad, and I would give them the $7,500, and I'd give them more if they could substantiate, if they could actually say, this is what the island's getting back in that.
I was interested in reading the minutes that it was the members of the accommodation committee that are there representing the lodging industry were the ones promoting this, which I found interesting. They're there to represent the lodging industry. They know more about that than I do. Patrick?
Well, I have a question, and I'll defer to some advice from the rest of the council members in terms of the history. Are the other local governments supporting this as good neighbors because we all benefit from it? Is that...
No other...
If we don't have the evidence that Mr. Buchanan's speaking of?
The other municipalities don't contribute. As she said, the representative of Spoleto, Kiowa doesn't participate. Nobody stays at Kiowa. Mount Pleasant, I have no idea what their position is, but they haven't participated. They may not have been asked. I don't know.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
The ad that we ran, I love the ad that we ran because it promotes Isle Palms in the off-season. And we're getting all the people who come to Spoleto and they see that ad. So, I mean, I'm all in favor of us continuing the ad, not so much the sponsorship.
Well, whether it be a sponsor ad, I agree with Ryan. I'd like to see some metric as to what bang are we getting for the buck. How many people? How many people see either?
Just want to say that at the time that the ATAX committee chose to put an ad, it was like a good faith contribution to Spoleto, because we really could not justify giving them 15 or 2 or 5 or whatever, because we didn't have any data to support it. But the general feeling was the island really wanted to support the arts, and therefore if we put an ad, at least we could say there is some semblance of a chance that we can get heads and beds at another time, and rather than in Memorial Day when we don't really need any more. So it was really a good faith gesture to do the ad. so that we would be supporting Spoleto in some means.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we need to be a sponsor unless we know more concretely what the benefits are, so. All right. We have a motion, a second. I don't think we need any more discussion. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Everyone. Okay, we're moving on. But I think they need to know that we're serious. We'd go to a sponsorship at any meaningful level if we could see the dynamics of what it means to the
Mr.
island.
Mayor,
Please.
can I ask a question? ATAX, and the whole, when I was served on ATAX, and half of the council, I think, served on ATAX at one time or another, you know, it was always put into our head about the heads and beds. And so I'm not sure we really could use ATAX monies for something that we can't substantiate, but could the city not do an ad versus...
Well, we can do an ad with ATAX.
Okay.
Now.
All right.
Yeah. I mean,
Thank you.
any advertising, it's hard to specifically point to the benefit, but getting your name out there is obviously a benefit, and whether it's long-term or short-term. So, yeah, the city can proceed with, we have it budgeted.
Well, I would just like to clarify, if it's the committee, if it's council's intent that we use ATAX money, state ATAX money, to purchase an ad, then we should probably have that as an alternate motion at this time and an amount be stated. Because we do not have plans to put an ad.
I'll make that motion.
To give me an amount of money.
What was our ad last year, 38?
$3,500? Just full pay. We don't have anything budgeted.
Yeah, we spent 35, including the preparation as well as the ad itself.
I would like to make a motion that we use up to $3,500 for an ad promoting Isle Palms in the off-season in the Spoleto brochure.
From ATAX.
From ATAX.
State ATAX, okay.
Where's it coming from?
ATAX.
It would come out of the $50,000 of money that they have to distribute in state ATAX funds.
Okay. Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on. Award of $2,500 for sponsorship for Dunlop Junior, I'm doing it again, I know. Tennis championship to be held later this spring.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on. I'm trying to think of what else we did. We got through all that stuff. We're going to discuss at the end of this meeting with the table our budget process. We went through that. Okay, that's the chair's Ways and Means Committee report.
Field dispenser, did we do that?
What did we do? We did
Yes,
the
we did that.
dispenser.
We did it
Yeah,
last. I mean, we did them first.
I went the wrong order.
I missed that.
It's very confusing.
Thank you.
All right, let's have a Public Safety Committee report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Safety Committee met Monday, January 13th. I was elected chairman, and Councilmember Berg were vice chair. We've got an update on the beach parking wayfinding signs from Stantec. They are looking into the parking permit feasibility, and they're going to base estimates on the allowable number of parking permits and passes on the capacity of the streets. An interesting thing that they did, if I can find it, was another facet of their work was to determine what the available right-of-way is on each road. At that time, they had a draft map and had marked roads with less than 8 feet of right-of-way, roads with 8 to 14 feet of right-of-way, and roads with 16 feet of right-of-way. And we will be reviewing that. With this information, they're going to be able to begin developing a road identification on how many parking spaces are available on the island, which is something we need to know. They also identified obstructions in the right-of-way. It was another one of their tasks, and that's not yet been overlaid with their GIS mapping. They have been pretty successful in identifying private roads on the island. They have located each road on the island, placed it in a matrix that, based on the source of the documents, identifies the road as state, city, or private. And they've been using SCDOT's official GIS data. An email from Charleston County dated February 4th relative to road maintenance and what roads are cities and what are DOT roads. A letter from Robert Clark dated in September, and an attorney's letter dated April 21st, 2004, and they're putting all this together along with court documents filed. So they are moving right along. Got an update on the electronic message boards from Marie Lagonis. Langlois. Sorry.
You got to do your French.
Reading too fast. They submitted the application for the encroachment permit for the signs at Breach Inlet and at the entrance to the island coming off the bridge. They hope to have something for us to look at that's going to show us what that sign is going to look at. And this board, we confirmed this message can be changed remotely. We also discussed additional staffing at Fire Station 2. We're into our budget process now. One of the concerns is that as far as having additional person, we would need to hire that person prior to the beginning of our next fiscal year in order to have them on board for our tourist season. And we're getting together information pertaining to that. So that would bring us closer to the meeting the National Fire Protection Association standards. And also, an additional person per shift would reduce wear and tear on the engine and lengthen the time for tire replacement. Councilmember Carroll turned the question to Chief Graham as to what the priority was of the 3 requests made to City Council, and to add the additional person was her #1 priority. We approved the other 2, so we're going to be looking at this closely and bringing back some information to Council to take another look at that. We discussed the FY15 budget process. Sounds like we'll be looking at it a little differently this year and taking a look at revenues a little further into the budget cycle. Awards of contracts in excess of $10,000. We just approved the purchase of the tasers. Administrator Tucker explained FirstNet to us. This was on the agenda to make us aware that this effort on a national level to have a consolidated dispatch system. This is a state-by-state decision-making process, but if states do not opt in by a certain date, it will be forced on the states in a different manner and cost more money. Of course, they're behind the 8 ball in it. We haven't received any information of it.
Are you kidding me?
No, but we need to know about it.
A forced dispatch? Never mind. Go ahead.
I know. FirstNet is far in the future, but we know what it is when we hear about it.
All right.
We went on to the departmental reports under the fire department. I'll just briefly hit this. Fire department in November responded to 46 calls, 25 of which were EMS. And on January 30th, which is today, the calls from Consolidated Dispatch will be synthesized and sound more robotic. But Chief Graham says that actually that's going to make the calls clearer because they're spoken more slowly at an even pace. So if you think you're talking to a robot,
Did it start? Have they started today?
We haven't heard it yet today. I was told there might be a slight delay because of the
ice
going on, but today was the marked day.
I'd like to hear one of those. In December, personnel responded to 43 calls, 27 of which were for EMS. The fire inspector performed 8 inspections with 29 violations. And all fire department personnel are participating in the city's wellness program. Chief Buchanan reported for the police department from November 16th through the end of 2013, the island experienced 16 break-ins to vehicles. 15 of these vehicles were unlocked. So, again, please lock your vehicles, lock your homes. Dispatchers handled 4,767 calls. 3,530 were for the Isle Palms Police Department. November saw 398 traffic stops, yielded 93 citations. In December, there were 4,730 calls for a total of 52,658 calls for the year. That is a lot of calls. In the month, there were 332 traffic stops with 69 tickets, and in the year, officers wrote 21 tickets for DUI and 393 speeding tickets. As information, 2 officers have completed their training at the Criminal Justice Academy and now are in field training on the island. They'll be ready in mid-March.
Good.
And in December, we had 8 calls for noise violations, which resulted in 3 warnings and no citations. Administrator Tucker said we're proceeding with the issuance of new hurricane stickers, and when that happens, that will be at the Public Safety Building, not at City Hall. Next meeting date is Monday, February 10th at 9 o'clock in the conference room.
All right, any questions for public safety, Michael?
I have a couple things I want to do. Number one, the message boards, I assume you're referring to the message board, the one that the monument that we have at the
Yes.
I'd like to request that we give a full discussion about that in the Ways and Means.
Okay.
I'll be quite frank. I've spoken to a couple dozen people about this, and then during the holiday circuit, when you're meeting people, what's going on, city council, and I've asked opinion. I haven't had one person tell me they thought spending this kind of money on the message boards was a good idea. And I'd like to really think we need to vet that out pretty further into committee before we do this. And I sense this as the same opinion that we have when we try to do the dog collars on where we wanted to have everyone from all over have special licenses similar to Sullivan's Island. So I'd like that. I think we should vet it out and see where we are with that. Second of all, as far as staffing with the police department, I think one of the things that Councilman Ward brought up last year was about some type of an EMS type thing. We did have a presentation about it. More and more we're running into increase of our emergency response calls. We're taking our big heavy-duty equipment out there. We're wearing that equipment out and even last month, over 50% of our calls were EMS, and I think we need to really address that in this budget process and see what we do and make sure the staffing's being taken care of that. And it may mean, instead of adding 3 police firemen or firefighters, it may mean doing something totally different with that. And I really think it needs to have study now early on in the process.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Just out of curiosity, on that same note, I think Chief Graham did a great presentation last year on that emergency response vehicle.
They're called quick response vehicles.
Quick response.
I think it was like $750,000 and staffing for the truck. And so, it was a great presentation. We should always give it to us again, but I thought she did a good job.
Well, we need to look at all options. Example, cross-training some people as far as that, that they're not on where we have a different vehicle and do some things differently. So I think we really need to build up from the ground up, and because the nature of, our public safety continues to change, and I think we need to be on the cutting edge of that and make decisions with that. So I'd like to see City Council have several options, and let's look at all the options before we, during this budget process.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I think most of our firemen are trained EMTs and first responders, so As far as cross-training, I don't know what type of cross-training that would be, since they're all fully trained.
Okay.
But we'll look at it.
Let's hear from Public Works, please.
Public Works Committee met at 5:30 PM Tuesday, January 14th, 2014. Councilmember Ferenz was elected vice chair. We went to citizens' comments, and Jim Rye approached the committee about discussion at the November meeting about the city's need to replace the underground fuel tank by 2017. He suggested that the city should look at resources available on the island and possibly team up with the marina or the Kangaroo gas station across the street, rather than own fuel tanks as a separate entity. Maintenance and trash collection tracking reports for the month of November. Household garbage was down slightly from the same period last year, but upon averaging November, December, there's only a 33-ton difference between 2013 and 2012. On the other hand, yard debris continues to run higher in 2013 than 2012. Update on Seahorse Court sinkhole. Director Pitt said there's nothing to report. The administrator repeated Charleston County is investigated and a work order for the repairs have been issued. Item B, under old business, consideration of amendment to require contractors remove yard debris. After extensive discussion between the committee members, the consensus of the committee was to take no action at this time and remove the item from future agendas. We had a discussion of the fiscal year 2015 budget process. Under new business, that's item A. Item B was consideration of keeping lights on palm trees at the front beach area year-round. Citizen contacted me. There's been several over the past couple of years, and I've heard it for many years, about how quite dark it is at the front beach area year-round. And it just, it looks like there's nothing down there after dark. And how nice the Christmas tree lights looked on the palmetto trees. But we had a report from fire department employee who takes care of those lights, and he gave us a demonstration saying those lights would not hold up in the summer, especially in the heat, because the bulb only shows yellow discoloration when the glue originally attached to the metal cap. However, there was enthusiastic response from all the committee members about the idea. I think Councilmember Loftus was speaking about the boulevard and Coleman Boulevard in Mount Pleasant, and how nice and that looks, and how much of a festive mood it gets to the area. And we based on the conversation, Administrator Tucker commented that the city would proceed removal of the lights from the palm trees and asked ATAX to look into the project. I'd like to ask at this time for a report from the city administrator about where are we on this.
Yes, sir. We've looked for trees similar to those trees that exist along Coleman. If you go and look at the ones where Coleman has the lights, they're oak trees, and so we don't have a lot of those types of trees in the area that we would seek to put these lights. That's not to say that we might not still have some other alternative where we could affect something similar, where we get more lighting down at the front beach and also sort of create a more festive atmosphere. There's not been an ATAX meeting for this to be on their agenda for discussion since the Public Works Committee met. So that's what we've done, is we've gone and looked at the Coleman Boulevard area that's being spoken about, and looked at our areas to try to figure out if we could replicate it. We don't think we can replicate that, but we are still looking towards trying to do something.
Very good. We just want to press this issue so we don't go through another summer with it being so dark down there. It's I've heard it for years. There's absolutely no light whatsoever. Under miscellaneous business, we had acknowledgement of exemplary work from a letter from Carol Bork, and thank Director Pitts for the job his staff did on the island. Director stated that the driver mentioned was Russell Roper. Next meeting date will be 5:30 Wednesday, February 5th, 2014, in council chambers.
Thank you. Any questions for Public Works? Very good. Let's move on to Recreation Committee, please. Terry?
Recreation, number one, I am so pleased to be on this committee. You know, I grew up on that playground. My mother ran it 50 years ago, so it's kind of like a full circle coming back to it. The Rec Center committee, we met on January 14th. Members Buchanan and Harrington and I were present. I was elected chair, and Councilman Buchanan was elected vice chair. We had approval of previous minutes. There were no citizens' comments. Director Page gave her report. As opposed to my going through there and reading all the numbers of all the kids who played in different things, I'm not going to do that. But I'll give you the highlights. And I met with Norma Jean earlier this week. The programs are always packed. The Rec Center offers programs for every age group, starting with tiny tots, on up to our senior social group, to teenagers, and everything in between. On the table over by the wall are activities, but I don't see anybody here who's part of our public, but they're there for you. Everybody here, go grab one, because there's a lot of programs for everybody here. We just finished our adult 3-on-3 basketball, 6-on-6 soccer, table tennis, and co-ed volleyball. In youth sports, we've started our basketball season, which is fun to watch. We just had a great kid from Isle Palms, Ben Ebling, who was a prodigy here. I mean, he just played at College Charleston. Luckily, he had a good game, but his team lost. That's good for Charleston. Please go by there and watch our kids. Some of the recent activities: soccer, volleyball, toys, tot lacrosse, BOSU, knitting, gymnastics, pre-K, jump start, kids night out, also known as parents night out, line dancing, mahjong, Spanish, ghostly tie tales this past October, middle school dance, which is pretty amazing to witness, tennis, writing, hugely successful Halloween carnival, Santa's workshop, and a Christmas holiday street festival. It was a big thing. The biggest thing we got coming up is this Saturday is Doggy Days. If you got your dog, go get it registered for the contest. Best smile, best rescue, best costume, most unusual breed, best eyes. So bring your pet out. Also, this past year, what we did is we coordinated our dog license to be renewed on this Saturday. So this is a good time to get your vaccination and get your dogs registered. Long story short, the Recreation Center is busy. The staff does a great job with athletics, events, and programs for the whole island and for all ages. The building and the grounds are well kept. There is always a smiling face there to greet and help you. Staff each has their own specialties, but they all multitask. We have one staff member, Holly, who's out on maternity leave, and we got another one soon to be out on maternity leave, but everybody fills in between. We had one action item to vote on. We did that earlier for the fencing. Our next meeting date is February 10th, 4:45. And in my report, in a quick one.
Did you take a breath?
No, sir.
I couldn't quite tell. Any questions for Rick?
I'm trying to get us through. So
I know you are.
are.
We're moving on. Personnel Committee, please, Sandy.
Hi, I'm pleased to report that the Personnel Committee met on Thursday, January 9th at 9 a.m. The election of Vice Chair was Councilman Vitelli. After the approval of the meeting minutes, we had the consideration on employees bidding on surplus city-owned assets. If you look in your packet, you have a copy of that.
Looks like this.
Bidding, employee policies.
Right.
Employee bidding.
The City Council passed an ordinance amendment allowing employees to bid, but our employee handbook needs to be updated and revised. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to accept this addition to the employee handbook.
So moved.
Second? Okay, any discussion on the handbook policy change that you've had a chance to read through? Heard? Bubs?
Is that with the amendment that was made by the Personnel Committee? Does that include?
Yes, the version that they have has that change.
Okay. And no other points? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, handbook is changed.
We then had the nomination of PFC Hunter Larimore as Employee of the Month. And to paraphrase the Chief's recommendation, your quick thinking and actions greatly reduced the potential of further fire damage to the residents and ensured the personal safety of the homeowner. So we congratulate PFC Larimore. We then moved to consideration of the FY 2015 budget process. And looked at whether or not that process should be amended or changes recommended. I think each of the committees have been looking at it, and just as I've heard from other committees, we're looking at possibly having the revenue streams researched before rather than at the end of the process. We also looked at the discussion in terms of the fire department staffing needs, goals for the disaster fund, and addressing revenues at the front end of the budget process. We look forward to continued conversation of this at the Ways and Means Department. We then looked at a discussion of the city administrator's 2014 performance goals. Questions concerning the objective goals set by and for the administrator were heard and will be reviewed and discussed further at the next Personnel Committee meeting. As a side discussion, the committee members asked that staff provide data regarding the financial impact of a citywide staff mechanic versus contracting maintenance work on an emergency basis. That data will be presented at our next meeting. Councilman Bertelli encouraged that new members attend the Municipal Association's Elected Officials Institute, which occurs on February 4th, and I think both Patrick and I have already registered to attend that, so we're going to participate then. The next Personnel Committee meeting is set for February 11th, 2014 at 10 a.m. No executive session was needed, and the meeting was adjourned at 10 a.m. The December Safety Sweepstakes winners, the Rec Department is Will McElroy, Police Department, Diane Tarr, Public Works, Kim Tapley, and Fire Department, William Pessator.
Okay, excellent.
Last but not least, on behalf of Doug Thomas, the immediate past member of the City Council and past chair of the Personnel Committee, I wish to paraphrase his report on our City Administrator's 2013 evaluation. I am pleased to report that all objective areas either achieved or exceeded their requirements. Thus, the final percentage of all objective areas is a perfect score of 85%. The subjective section, evaluated by 8 council members, resulted in a score of 13.1% out of a possible 15%. Congratulations, Linda, on a job very well done with a cumulative score of 98.1%.
Very good. Excellent.
Thank you.
I told somebody, speaking to that point, I told somebody part of Linda's challenge is to keep us out of trouble. You know, the last few days is representative of that, notwithstanding all sorts of other legal entanglements. You know, people don't realize what goes into keeping us out of trouble. All right, Real Property Committee, please.
Before that, Mayor, I have a question for personnel. Can you tell us, update council, how many openings we have by each department?
We have 1 opening in the fire department. We have no openings in any of the other departments.
Great, thank you.
Very good. All right, Real Property.
All right, well, thank you, Mayor. Real Property met on January 8th of this year. I was elected chair. We had citizen comments. Jim Rye, basically, he stated he wanted the city to be careful from a liability concern about using funds about beach erosion and maintaining a balance with stakeholders. Under old business, the marina manager, Brian Berrigan, and Jay Clark, a consultant he's working with, presented a conceptual plan for the marina to use funds not spent on the tidal wave docks for upgrades and continued improvements on the marina, particularly in parking. The finger pier that we had an accident last year was repaired, and 100% of the cost was bared by the boat owner's insurance, which is no cost to the city, which we're really pleased to see that. John Schaefer, the consulting working on total wave dock rehabilitation, gave the committee an update on the project. One of the things is the electricity, and the city's looking at talking with SC&G as far as burying power lines in the marina, which is something the city always likes to see happen. And so I'd like to ask our city administrator if she any updates on that.
Yes, sir. We had a meeting at the site involving SCE&G and our design engineer, and we spent quite a bit of time examining the existing problem that we were facing with providing electrical service to the tidal wave dock, and then also looking at the balance of the marina site and the power poles that are out there and where the power runs. We are working on a solution to the tidal wave dock that will minimize the number of poles, and then SCE&G is going to come forward with a plan to look at the removal of some of those existing poles that are there as well. I will share with you, though, that next time you go down 41st Avenue and go to the marina, you will note that approximately about where 41st Avenue on the opposite side where the ditch is, opposite the Yacht Harbor area, it starts right there, and there is a series of poles from that point all the way into the marina site, and I'm guessing here as many as 6 to 7 poles. In meeting with SCE&G out there, it doesn't look like we could be successful in getting rid of all of those, which would be really nice to get rid of all of those and also the ones at the marina site, but they may be able to come up with a component to remove some of them. So they left with going forward with doing a plan. Now keep in mind, a non-standard service clause project does involve a significant amount of money. It is a 50-50 match scenario. So, it remains to be seen as to whether or not this is something that the city would want to tackle. So we'll have to look at the numbers and the design at the time. But we were able to, for the near term for the tidal wave water sports, think that we can come up with a plan there. It still involves a pole, but it doesn't involve as many as it did, and it doesn't involve putting one in a line of sight for a neighboring resident, which we were very concerned about. And hopefully, ultimately, with a greater project in the future, we would be able to remove that one as well. But it's kind of hard to do a huge project of the non-standard service clause and putting a lot underground and still accomplish the goal of getting power to tidal wave in time for them to be up and operational. So we've had to kind of compromise and come up with a compromise plan. So you will be hearing more about that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, under new business, Councilman Ward asked the city to review the possibility of purchasing the Sea Cabin Pier, and so it could be used for public use. The committee discussed the idea and asked the city administrator to look at options for the pier and see if the pier was available. One idea was discussed a possibility of having Charleston County take over the pier and incorporate it into the county park. So it's something that we're looking at. We have a problem with silting in the intercoastal waterway. The intercoastal basically needs to be dredged between Ben Sawyer and Breach Inlet, with the boats being stuck, and unfortunately a couple accidents. So IOP and Sullivan's Island is asking the Army Corps of Engineers to get involved and see if we can do something about this problem. An RFP has gone out for the architecture review for the public restrooms for Front Beach, and it was due in December 15th. I'd like to ask the city administrator for the update of the bids.
On January 15th, we received 3 proposals for this project. The staff is in the process now of evaluating those 3 proposals. All 3 are good candidates for this work, so it's just a matter of comparing all of them, determining which ones most closely responded to what the city requested in the RFP, and coming forward with a recommendation to the committee.
Okay, thank you. We discussed already as far as allocating monies for the POS system and the new printer for the fuel system. The new pumps are in, and one thing to be noted is that people will be able to buy gasoline that does not contain ethanol at the marina at the pumps. Well, so save your save your lawnmowers and fill your boats up. We also discussed the budget process, and everyone came to consensus that revenues were critical as far as moving forward and deciding how much money we have available for current needs. All tenants are current on the rent, with the exception of one tenant, and a city administration was supposed to receive a check at the meeting. And are we current?
We're not current, but they do plan to have it current by April.
Great, thank you. All right, next meeting is set for February 4th at 5:30 PM.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for real property? All right, let's move on. You have boards and commissions minutes. Any issues as you went through those? All right, none heard. So let's go on to bills already in your possession. Make a motion for second reading of ordinance 2013-12, an ordinance authorizing the conveyance by quitclaim deed of all right, title, and interest, if any, that the city of Isle of Palms may have in the property identified as one half of the dead-end street previously known as 39th Avenue to the estate of Robert Allen Berry and Ellen Glass Berry.
You wanted to waive the
I want to waive the reading of the ordinance. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
A second. Any further discussion? This is second reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. All right, now we have introduction of new bills. We have two, I guess I call them companion bills. They work together. First reading a title of ordinance 2014-1, an ordinance amending Title 8, Motor Vehicles Traffic, Chapter 1, Traffic Regulations, Article C, Stopping, Standing, and Parking of Vehicles, City of Isle of Palms Code of Ordinances to provide regulations limiting the parking of commercial vehicles in residential and commercial districts and to provide a definition for commercial vehicles. I'll make that as a motion for first reading. Do I have a second? No seconds?
I'll second.
Motion seconded, okay. In discussion, I'm going to propose that these two ordinances be taken up in fair detail by the Public Safety Committee to make sure there's no unintended consequences, since it is a new way to look at the commercial vehicles and signage that is coming forward. So I would hope that before we get to second reading, we can have some words from the Public Safety Committee.
We'll look at that, Mayor. Thank you.
So any other questions, concerns?
Just a couple for the public safety to take in consideration. And I may have a question on this. So this would stop, I own my own business, but this would stop me from bringing home any of my work trucks and parking in my driveway as well. Whether it were one of my vans, my work vans, it would not allow. I can think of another resident right around the corner of me who's done a lot of work for the city, would not allow him to keep what they're considered earth-moving equipment on his property now. So Mr. Peterson would have to remove his tractor from his property. Tractors having, I'm assuming that's a semi, and not my other truck that I have that has dual wheels on it. There's a few things on there that it's still,
Well, that's why I want public safety to
that's why I was
get
bringing
into the
it
details.
up. So,
Another
We
question
need to
along
look
the
at
same
that.
lines. Could a police officer drive their car home and park in the yard? I mean,
Yeah, there's a size
It's
limitation.
a size issue so it would be okay for the police officer.
okay, just,
You have to be
20
larger than, I can't remember what it was.
I think it's 20 feet.
20 feet. And so,
Okay.
even the SUVs make it. Well, okay, with that, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
And if you have any opposed?
no.
One no. Okay. So Ryan's comments are noted by Public Safety. Anybody else has comments? Get them to Public Safety, and we're not going to move on this until we get some further read on it. So I'll move on. First reading by title only of ordinance 2014-2, ordinance amending Title 5, Planning and Development, Chapter 4, Zoning, Article 7, Signs, City of Isle of Palms Code of Ordinance to delete references to vehicle signs and prohibited signs. I'll make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. In the same manner as the first ordinance, Public Safety will take them up in position. You might ask Douglas to sit in because he can share with you, or even the chairman of planning, to understand what their logic was as they went through all this stuff, and see if it can't be fine-tuned. Jimmy?
Where did this come from?
I'll speak to that. These are actually holdovers from an initiative, both of these ordinances that are holdovers from an initiative that was started in 2013. And they're basically revamps. If you'll recall, we had what we called a vehicle sign ordinance that was talked about in 2013. Those were referred back to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission made some decisions relative to taking this out of vehicle signs and moving it to the section of the code for stopping, standing, and parking of vehicles, which is not in the zoning. And that companion ordinance that is there for first reading actually is just it's a housekeeping change to take that identification out of the zoning. So this actually represents probably several meetings worth with the Planning Commission as a result of council's volleying it back to them, and this is the work product that's come back as a result of that. Sterling wants to speak.
But I should clarify on that as well. So there was a lot of work that was done at the Planning Commission level, and when it finally came back to me for the final legal review before it would come back to you all, the ordinance had become so complicated and so burdensome that I really found that my best advice was to scratch it completely and start over. And the reason is because I felt like it was opening some doors to challenges, maybe under First Amendment or some other issues. Also, just the constitutionality issues having to do with the ordinance not being enforceable at that point. We had laid out sort of what we wanted, but then we had so many exceptions that it had become sort of this massive ordinance. And I love words, and there's nobody that loves words more than me, and I love to tweak them, and I love to draft these things, but I got to the point where even I could not understand what we were trying to do here. So what I did was I went back and looked at other municipalities and the way that they addressed these things. I wanted to take it out of the signage part of the code and put it under motor vehicles, if that's what we're really trying to do here. And using some samples I found from other municipalities, it was my recommendation to Planning Commission to take a look at this sort of sample draft ordinance, and then I figured we would be tweaking it from there. And I believe that Planning Commission really didn't have any changes at that point and just sort of okayed what I had provided as a sample, not necessarily thinking of all of the innuendos that we definitely need to do some more work on. So that's where it came from. It was really my legal advice not to go forward with all the work that Planning Commission had finally done on that, because we had just gotten to a point where the ordinance was it was too burdensome. I think that it would not have been good advice to go ahead and pass it at that point. We can always go back and look at that again and maybe make some changes.
Jimmy?
I think this kind of came about because of some cars parked in the commercial district that had signs on there. And then it got complicated and we started looking at trucks that have been here forever that had signs on the side of them that I think exceed 20 feet. So I kind of go back to, if it ain't broke, why spend all this money for a lot of words? Yeah, I mean, and I love your words, but...
I mean, part of what we're dealing with now is also, Sandy Stone's not here, but his concern that people can't take their vehicle home at night if it has a sign on the door. And he was trying to deal with that through this mechanism. And so we are confused, there's no question. So, Patrick?
No,
Okay. So we'll continue. If somebody many years ago said if you're likely to do something stupid, you don't have to hurry. So let's take due deliberation to make sure that we don't do something we're not happy with in full. All right, all in favor of that first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I oppose. No.
3 noes. Okay, 3 noes. All right, miscellaneous business. You have before you a meeting schedule noted here. This is a case where if council agrees, I would like to move the March council meeting to be coincident in following the Ways and Means meeting. to allow the administrator, our police chief, et cetera, to be present. They have a CALEA obligation that's going to take them away after the Ways and Means, and there would be no time to prepare for the Ways and Means. So that would require our meeting on March 18th for both the Ways and Means at 5:45, and then we would hold council meeting at 7 o'clock if the balance of council agrees. So I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we have changed that date, and Marie will advertise it accordingly. Did you hear me?
I don't know.
Marie, you're going to advertise that accordingly? Yes. We've changed the date, okay. She may have already done so.
What is the date again?
7 o'clock.
18th.
March 18th. Be no council meeting on the 25th, but the council meeting for the 25th will move to the 18th.
It'll be on the 18th.
Day after St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, I don't know if we can do that.
It's a big one.
No, wait, I think we'll get through that. You have scheduled for the FY15 budget calendar in your package. You can see that, as has been discussed by the various committee reports, that we're going to deliberate on revenues in the first period and then move on into the other expense areas, capital and operating expenses. So no other comment need be done. You can see that we're, again, trying to get to closure in April so we can and still have some room if we need to extend ourselves as we go through the budget process. And then we have an update on the shopping center. So I'll ask the administrator to...
Yes, after the Ways and Means meeting, I was able to communicate with Leonard Way. He indicated that all construction activities should be wrapped up in April, and that Harris Teeter is shooting to be open by Easter, which is April the 20th. At the very latest, everything would be opened in mid-May, and that they believe that they have all of the space leased, and that most of the respective tenants have signed leases.
Did you say Harris Teeter?
I did say Harris Teeter.
I thought it was Kroger.
No.
It's Harris Teeter.
They're not... Owned by Kroger is now the parent. Harris
company.
Teeter is still going to be the operating name and still operate as a division of Kroger. It's not going to be changed to Kroger.
Okay, so when is the opening again?
They haven't given us a date.
They're shooting to be open by Easter, which is April 20th.
So May.
But
it could be May.
That's a lot better than the information I'm getting in my latest information came in this afternoon. They were saying early summer.
May is kind of early summer.
I would think.
Very early summer.
I don't know the source of your information, but...
I don't know news. They showed me the correspondence between them and people at the beach company.
Well, this is Leonard Way.
Leonard Way's the...
What is the date?
The 22nd.
That's why I'm just telling you. It's what I heard today.
Yeah.
Well,
I contacted him right
afternoon.
after the Ways and Means meeting, and that was the information that he gave me.
The one thing that Linda said that I don't want people to miss on is that all of the other premises there are under lease. Correct. Harris Teeter is just one piece of it, of course, the big piece and the anchor, but all the other property is effectively under lease as well, although they haven't divulged who it's going to be and what they're going to do and whatever.
Okay, so you're, according to your best estimate, it's somewhere between Easter and May 31st?
Yeah.
He said mid-May, but yeah.
Mid-May?
I mean, we can put odds. I mean, we don't know. I mean, they got to finish the construction, which is Leonard's job. Then they got to dress it up.
Well, there's a lot of interest in this topic.
Oh, absolutely.
There's an enormous amount of interest, especially after the last couple of days.
Everybody wants it.
You know, so the more that we know, that we can pass on to citizens the most accurate information possible as soon as we know it, the better off we are.
I'm certain they want to please all of the residents out here as well as we want to be pleased by what they'll have to offer. So, if they can get it in sooner, like before Easter, to their credit.
That'd be great.
But weather's a condition, and I don't know what other impediments they're going to face in the meantime. So, okay, that's the update.
Great news from the bulletin board.
I'm not sure yet.
Once we know for sure.
Once we have a
absolutely
date,
for sure.
then we're good. But right now, it's still speculative. But mid-April to mid-May is what I would tell people at the moment. All right, our next meeting, we'll have a special meeting on the 18th at 5 o'clock, and then we'll move into, on the 25th, the 7 p.m. meeting is scheduled. Unless Jimmy wants to offer to change that again.
Well, I want to throw some things out there I thought was kind of interesting. I had too much time this afternoon in my free time, so I started looking at some of our surrounding municipalities. Keowal, which is predominantly, retired people, they meet their council at 2 o'clock in the day. I know we can't do that. Sullivan's Island does theirs at 6. North Charleston does theirs at 7. Charleston does theirs at 5. Mount Pleasant does theirs at 6. Folly Beach meets twice a month, 7 o'clock. Edisto at 6. Charleston County at 6:30. And Hilton Head at 4 o'clock. I just throw that out there, just thinking that long days and long nights and trying to get some of these ladies home from being at City Hall all day long. So, I know we meet at 7. It's predominantly, we've always done that, but I look at our citizens and
staff.
And I'm not sure if it's a good idea to start thinking about coming earlier or not, just an hour earlier, just to make the day a little shorter. And it was interesting looking at all these communities. Emily also helped me this afternoon chasing some of these down, but I was kind of surprised. The 2 o'clock I know is impossible. So anyway, I just throw that out there as for general information.
Well,
It's will of council, as for a meeting at 7 o'clock versus...
Well, unless there's a motion to change, we're set at 7 for the 25th. If you want to make a motion to change it.
I'd like to make a motion, just to put it out there on the table, to move our future council meetings from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock. That's my motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Okay, discussion?
I'll probably won't be able to make most of the meetings at that time.
That's too tight for your work schedule.
Yeah, basically.
Do we negotiate here? Do we say 6:30?
No, look, this has been the way the city has run. I think it's worked well, and I think it's important that we are transparent and that citizens can come out and see what's going on and participate in government. And thank goodness we don't have any hot issues right now. But if we did have something going on about rental issues or public safety issues, I think it's important to open it up and allow citizens to be involved.
But I think what Jimmy's saying is that's what the other communities have the same interest as well, and they don't hold it at 7. So. Any other discussion? Nobody else?
I know we have a motion
please.
on the floor, but if we have a special council meeting at 5, then could we presume that when there are special meetings at 5, then we could hold the council meeting at 6 if in fact, so we don't have to wait until 7?
These aren't different dates.
Yeah, these have to be different dates. We do have a requirement that we advertise these things, and so we need, and also it's I think maybe even set by code the time of the meeting. So if we're going to make a definite change, then we should make a code change. If we're going to make a temporary change, we have to allow time for Marie to get it in the paper, unless it's just a special meeting. But for our regular council meeting, and I think what I heard was a motion to move that to 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Then what action we would take would be to advertise them as being moved to 6 p.m. on the days indicated, and then if that was going to be a permanent change, then we would move forward with a change to the language in the code, if it specifies the time. And I think it does.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a suggestion that we consider this. We've already announced when the February meeting is going to be. We've just determined when the March meeting is going to be. So we've got until the March meeting to mull this over and think about it and come up with the best answer to it.
I thought it was.
Okay. Let's
willing to withdraw, absolutely.
Withdraw.
Motion withdrawn, second been withdrawn. We'll deal with this again on the Next couple of months. You're so close, I know.
My bedtime.
All right, nothing else to be brought before council, no executive session needed. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait, we do have an executive session.
We do?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I read ahead.
Yeah, you
All
need
right.
to state the reason.
All right, we're going into executive session with a motion to receive legal advice concerning a potential claim related to the Alpens Water and Sewer Commission.
Oh, look at, they all left. I saw the commission's going.
Motioned and seconded? Seconded, all right. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're in executive session.